thing, if you want to be tester for a long time, and if you really want to get good handle over it, better learn programming. And you don't have to become an expert programmer, but you can become a good tester by learning programming. Okay, so development is different, programming is different. Okay, any questions before I start? Anyone? Okay, yeah. So Prasanna, I am just asking any if you have any questions. Okay. All right. So coming back, what is the language processor understands? Yeah, good evening, Rani. So what is the language processor understands? Binary. So what does binary contains? Ones and zeros. Okay, ones and zero. So for example, there is number 0. Is this number 0 same as binary 0? No, because ours is a decimal system, right? That is a binary system. These two are different systems. So for example, I have number 0. How will you convert it into binary? How will you convert it into binary? Okay, you will write code to convert it into binary, but tell me what is the equivalent for binary, for 0? And binary always depends on the number of bits it has. See, for example, there is a 32-bit processor, there is a 64-bit processor. So means a 64-bit processor takes everything as 64 bits. So 0 in a 64-bit processor is 64 zeros. Understood? 0 in 32-bit processor is 32 zeros. Agreed? So it depends on see, like in binary we can have many bits. Agreed? So depending upon the bit type we will have the number of zeros like that. So what is 1 in binary? For example, let's say this is 0. Tell me 1. Tell me 1 for 32-bit. And last one is 1. Tell me number 2. Okay, 1 0. Agreed? So this is how we write in binary. So processor understands binary. So if we have to write 32 bits for just writing 0 and 1, will it be easy to write a complete program? See, for example, I want to do like 100 plus 100. In calculator, I want to do 100 plus 100. So is it easy to do in decimal system or is it easy to do in binary system? Is it easy to do in, okay, it's easy in decimal system. Okay, so but you know that processor does not understand decimal system, it will only understand binary system. So everything whatever we do is getting converted to binary. In the olden days people used to directly code binary. People used to give this 32 bits and they used to give some other bits. For plus symbol they used to give another bit, and for again 100 they used to give 32 bits, and they for equal to they used to press another bit, means for another number of bits, and then they used to get result. So is it a painful experience? So so just because the processor understands binary, we can't code in binary, right? So if you code in binary, can you read your programs easily? No. So that is the reason people used to, people started in binary, but people never really um, did in binary much of the coding or anything. But as we know, every program, everything we do on a machine will be finally converted to binary. Agree? So people created languages called assembly languages. Assembly languages. Does anyone have any idea about this assembly language? Anyone has any idea about assembly language? COBOL is not an assembly language. 8086. Very good, Mamata. Okay. See, assembly languages are languages which are close to binary. Close to, see how many alphabets are there, or how many, let's put it, let's tell, say them as alphabets. How many alphabets are there in binary form? How many different types of elements are there in binary? Only 2. That is the reason why processor understands it very well, because it doesn't have to remember many things. It only remembers 2 things, and everything is made out of these 2 things. Agreed? How so? Do you know hexadecimal? Hexadecimal system. How many different elements are there in hexadecimal? So the name itself tells hexadecimal. 16, not 6, 16. 0 to 9, and I think A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay, maybe a H is there, I don't know, I don't remember it. So 16 elements are there, hexadecimal. Yeah, so yeah, okay, so hexadecimal. So in a hexadecimal, because of this hexadecimal, you get 16, right? So you can write more efficient programs, right? It doesn't have to be everything 0. You can write 9 as 9. You can write some other thing as 0, A, B, C, like that. So you can put your like more elements together to make more forms. So this is easier. But again, for example, like let's say you are converting 1000 into hexadecimal. So it will, I don't know what it will be. So it will be more readable to the human, it will be less readable to the machine. So programs generally, so for example, if I want to do this 100 plus 100, I will write it in hexadecimal. So it is easier for the human to write it in hexadecimal than in binary. But if I write it in hexadecimal, will the machine understand it? Will the machine understand it if I write it in the hexadecimal? No. So then what do I need to do about this hexadecimal code? If I have a hexadecimal code, what should I do it? I need to compile. So what does compilation mean? Compilation mean converting program from one form to another form. It will convert the program from one form. It will convert this hexadecimal into binary, and binary will execute. Agreed? So finally every program needs to be converted. So as we are converting in hexadecimal. So people used to code in assembly languages until even in 80s also many people coded in assembly languages. Okay. Coming back, but again, see, we are more used for English. So if we can write anything closer to English, that will be very well, right? That can be more readable, that can be more understood, that can be easily remembered, you know. So people always strive to create programming languages closer to English. So that is the reason people created many languages after that. Assembly language, people created many languages. One is Fortran. This Fortran is created by NASA actually. Okay, this is nothing but formula transformations. Okay, see, most of us have wondered like why there are so many programming languages? Why was there not just one programming language? The thing is history. Why are there so many languages in this world? Why didn't we just use English from the day one? Because history means, you know, it happens. Like similarly, Some languages, similarly programming languages also like evolved depending upon the need and people choice, and some people didn't like other languages, so that is the reason we have many languages. But out of them, some languages suit for some purpose very well. For example, Fortran is very good for formula transformations. If you have a formula, Java is not the right language to code formulas. Fortran is the right language to code formulas because you can give inputs, it will give you outputs, because it was created in that base only, like it was created for that context only. So for any formula based calculations or anything, Fortran is good. It is created by NASA itself. And for example, there is Lisp, there is Prolog. I do not know if you know this. Lisp and Prolog are the languages which are created for artificial intelligence. For example, artificial intelligence, let's say if you are writing a program for robot, first thing it needs to take a step forward. First it needs to look around it and it needs to make sure everything is clear around it, and then it needs to make a step. Means in artificial intelligence it's all about recursion. It's all about recursion and rechecking. Recursion and rechecking means you have to do it to know whether I should do it and then do it. Am I clear here? In artificial intelligence programming, like when you are programming robots or when you are programming, for example, even like automatic lights and everything, these are all artificial intelligence. Sensors, a sensor will tell if a person is there or not, and the light will automatically turn off, right? So you need to really first verify and then do it. So you will do it twice, once for verification, once for doing it. So this is more of a recursive based programming. So Lisp and Prolog are best suited for artificial intelligence. Okay. Now then there is a C language. COBOL is for business language. For example, in the olden days, let's say like you are in 1980s and you go to buy a flight or something, and at the teller or a bank teller or in the airport, you will find this kind of screens and they will enter like number of tickets is one, you will get some response. So request response queue for business purposes they used to build using COBOL. So command line, yes, mainframe or command based screens for business purposes like airports, teller machines, bank teller machines in the old days like 80s. COBOL is best suited for this because they need to communicate with humans. See, Fortran doesn't interface with humans. Lisp doesn't interface with humans. But COBOL, the language is more for business because it's a human interface. So for command line based, COBOL was best suited for that. There were so many languages. C came along and stayed. It will stay forever. Okay. Who created C? Do you know who created language C? Who created language C? All right. Who created iPhone? Yes, very good. Dennis Ritchie. Okay. Dennis Ritchie is the person who created C language, and he is the one who created Unix operating system. He died on the same day as Steve Jobs died, but no one knows it, that he died. No one knows. Many of us don't know he existed too. But even iPhone runs Unix operating system. Unix is the kernel for many operating systems today, and it will still remain as a kernel. But the thing is, it's open source, means free. Unix, C language are free. So when you give it for free, people don't remember you. Okay, so C and Unix are both like part of Dennis Ritchie's team. Okay, yeah. So in around 1960s and 1970s, yeah. So C language came and it stayed. C language is suited for many things. It is really good for software development. It is really good for software development. Any software development, it is really good. And it's may not be good for research projects like this. Any current day software, Okay, what does it mean? For example, if you want to create a Microsoft Word, C language is good. If you want to create a Google Chrome browser, C language is good. If you want to create, let's say, Notepad, C language is good. If you want to create any of the software, C language is the best suited for that. Okay, so this kind of software, C language is very good. Okay, and C language is powerful, and C language is most popularly supported by all operating systems and everything. Okay, then so we have operating system. So these are the languages which came, and let me see if anyone has any question. Yeah, so C language was there. Remember, like as the history evolved, people created operating systems. Operating systems are nothing but a branch on the machine which act as to do everything. For example, say you have a MacBook. Mac is the operating system. If you want to create a file, you are creating a file over the Mac operating system. If I am creating a file on Windows operating system, right? The file still is in my hard drive, but it is created using the branch called operating system. Operating systems are the programs. They are also softwares, but they manage everything on the machine. It's not just like a notepad which is used for file management. It is operating system is a software which takes over your machine, and it is a way to access your machine. So all the file management, all the process management, process means application management, programs running on it, process management, all the hardware management is done using the operating system. Agreed? So anything you want to do is done using operating system. So what are the major operating systems right now? Can anyone tell me? What are the major operating systems right now? Yes, please. Okay, tell me with version, please. Unix. Coming back to Unix. What are the... Okay, how about now? My voice? Yeah. Okay, so I will ask you some questions here. So Windows 8 is there. First, let's come back to Windows 8. Is it supported by desktops? Windows 8. Is it supported by desktops? Is it supported? Desktop is a CPU. Desktop means is nothing but a standalone CPU. Like towers. Yeah. Windows 8, is it supported by laptops? Windows 8, is it supported by a mobile phone? Means smartphone. Yes. Windows 8 is an operating system which can go into mobile phone, which can go into tablet, which can go into laptop, which can go into desktop. Agreed? Because see, why am I talking desktop means the input output devices are there. Laptop input output devices are there inbuilt, and outside also peripherals. Remember, you can attach a mouse, you can attach a monitor to CPU. You can do the same thing for laptop, but you don't need to do that. For a mobile phone, you can't attach peripherals there. You can do that, but generally people don't do it because they will lose the purpose of mobile phone, right? So still Windows 8 operating system can be used according to it, and you can do it on tablet. Okay, no problem. So coming back, so Windows, let's say Windows. So right now Windows is supported by all devices. Okay, forget about whether is it a hit or flop. We are not here to judge operating systems based on their commercial value. So tell me, is Mac supported by smartphones? Is Mac supported by smartphone? No, that is a different operating system. What is the operating system Mac relevant for smartphones? iOS. Very good. Okay, agreed. So now tell me Unix. Is Unix is a core kernel. It's command line. Even desktops and it will only servers will do that. See, Windows 8, if it is Windows 8, can a server install it? No servers. Can Mac? No servers. Only desktop. Unix, yes. Servers, yes. But for desktops and everything, yes. But who is willing to use without any user interface? So that is the reason people use versions of, there are so many versions of Unix like AIX and everything. Even Linux is a version of Unix. Linux is a version of Unix. So is Linux there for desktop? Everyone please answer this. Is Linux there for desktop? Is Linux there for laptop? Yes, Ubuntu, yes, whatever the type of Linux, I don't mind. Red Hat or whatever it is. Okay. So it's there for desktop. Is Linux there for mobile phones? No. Is Unix there for mobile phones? Mac is Unix, iOS is Unix. Android is also Unix. Android is a type of Linux. Okay. But see, they are generic forms. They are not specific forms. So okay, no problem. So Android is there. So can Android run on desktop phone? Desktop? Yes, it can. If you want to, actually recent versions of Android can run on desktops also, but people don't use it. Okay. So now you know. So see, we are just discussing. See, Unix is the core. Linux is a version of Unix. Mac is a version of Unix. iOS is a version of Unix. Android is a version of Unix. Windows is a version of DOS. Okay. So are we getting some clear idea where we are right now? Okay. So right now people want operating systems which can fit into anywhere. In the olden days, people wanted operating systems which can go into machines where you can attach IO devices. But we don't want operating systems which can only be supported by IO devices. We want operating systems which can take my finger as a IO device too. Agreed? So that is the reason operating systems are changing. So Android, iOS, Windows and everything. Okay. So, but remember, when you are running a software, are you running a software, for example, tomorrow, I want to host this Whitebox QA site. Am I hosting it on an iPhone or am I using it on an iPhone? I am accessing Whitebox QA on an iPhone, but I am not hosting it on an iPhone. I will be hosting it on a server. What is the most used server software? What is the most used server software? Unix. Next is Linux. Next is Windows Server. Agreed? Alright. So, remember, yeah. And coming back, see, we have operating systems. See, by just having the operating systems, can we get through everything? No. Remember, see, I am running my Whitebox QA software on a Unix server. So think like that. Okay. I need RDBMS, right? I need a database there. Databases became popular using one technology, indexing technology, right? Indexing technology. You can use Whitebox QA from a browser. How can you use it from a browser? How can you use it from a browser? What is the protocol you are using to access Whitebox QA site? What is the protocol? HTTP is the protocol. What is the mother protocol of HTTP? What is the base protocol of HTTP? TCP/IP. So it's not just machines. You need protocols to make things work, right? So finally my software is running on a Unix machine and you are connecting to it using which protocol? TCP/IP protocol. But you are using a version of TCP/IP. What is the version you are using? HTTP. Agreed? So finally machines are running softwares and you are connecting using protocols. Softwares connect to softwares using protocols, right? Agreed? For example, if my Whitebox QA site is talking to a web service, what is the protocol it is using? SOAP protocol. Agreed? So protocols are very important. So TCP/IP, indexing, OpenLook, X Windows and stuff. So right now, see, from the day we started from binary to the day we are using machines for everything. Agreed? So we are using machines for everything. application development increased. Again, we are not talking about software development here. Application development increased. See, we need an app for everything. We need an app that what I should do next, and we need an app how to conduct this webinar. We need an app for to check email. We need an application. Means I am not talking about mobile app. Means anything application. We need a browser application or a mobile application or anything to do everything. Application development evolved into every field, and every thing a consumer can access can become an application. A consumer need or a information, every information consumer needs can come through an application. So in the olden days, people used C to create software, right? Software or applications. Can means it was created in around at the end of 1960s or early 1970s. Do you think still we should follow the same way how we did development like in 1960s and 1970s? No. In 1980s, there is something came up which changed how we programmed. That is called object-oriented programming. This changed how to program. Object-oriented changed how we should think, like how we should program. So there are two ways. So after this object programming concept, it's a concept, it's not a language. So this is also called OOP. Okay. So object oriented programming. After this concept came, people started to think in a different way to write programs. So when a different concept comes, different languages will come. So what are the languages which came based on object oriented programming? Can anyone tell me some of the languages which are object oriented? Anyone? Anyone? Can you tell me any programming language? Java, VB.NET, .NET, C#, C++. Wow. Very good. Yes, some of the popular are C++, Java, C#. Okay. All right. C#. This is called C#. Okay. Yeah. So these are some of the most famous object-oriented and the most used object-oriented programming language is Java. Okay. So let's see. There are two kinds of languages. One is called scripting languages. Okay. Actually, let me procedural. Okay. Languages can be classified in many ways. For example, a language can be procedural scripting and platform independent. A language can be procedural scripting and platform dependent. So, there are three ways to categorize programming languages. The first thing is procedural versus object oriented. Okay, let's see that. What is procedural versus C is a procedural language, C++ is object oriented language. Okay. So let's say, for example, think like this is a notepad. Agreed? So when I click this notepad, what did I do? I opened a file. Agreed? When I do this new again, it will open another file. Right? It's just like opening again. Okay. Or let's say if I want to save, I can do save functionality. So procedural means, can anyone tell me what does program contains? A program is made up of? What does a program contain? Functions, procedures, logic, methods. Very good. Okay. Yes, logic is written in methods or functions. Okay, methods or functions. Yes, see, there is notepad. If I am a developer for notepad software, I will write like this: open function, new function, save as function, agreed, close function, exit function, agreed. uh, Means exit is exiting the application, close means closing a document, so there is a difference. Okay, so let's say print function. So my program is nothing but set of functions, am I right? So when you write this program, that is called, if you write a program as a set of functions, that is called procedural, agreed. So people will write set of functions, so procedural means writing set of functions, set of functions, agreed. This is okay for software development, or kind of like building a notepad or something. But tomorrow, think like I am writing a software for Bank of America application, agree. Open account, close account, transfer money from one account to another account, withdraw from account, let's say deposit into an account, agreed. And next thing is, let's say open mortgage account, agreed. This open is different from this open, right? This open is different from this open. Means procedural is not a good idea to do development for application. There is something called object oriented. What is object oriented? See, when we, let's say, if I want to, let's say Bank of America application is there. When you are trying to solve any problem, you need to find entities in it. Can anyone tell me what is an entity? You have already finished SQL, you should know about entity. Okay, group of things having same attributes. No, it's not like that actually. Entity is nothing but definition. You are defining something which is nothing but set of attributes. So let's say, see, you are going to a bank. Let's say bank is an entity, account is an entity. Account, it's nothing but a, see, think like a noun which has attributes. It's a noun which has attributes, simple. Entity, the entities is nothing but which makes a system. A system is nothing but a combination of entities. The interaction and set of entities makes a system, okay? Entity is not logic. Entity is static actually. It's not dynamic or logic. It is static only, okay? See, let me put it in this way, okay? We are doing a webinar. Webinar is an entity, participant is an entity, organizer is an entity, right? Let's say recording is an entity, audio is an entity. So the system is made up of entities, and each entity has an attribute. Organizer, what is the email address for the organizer? Attribute, email address is the attribute on the organizer. Participant, what is the participant ID? Is the participant like for example, is the participant a first timer or not? So that is a attribute on entity. So entity is an unit. Yes, entity is a unit which is part of a system, and the system behaves using the interaction of entities. A system is nothing but a collection of entities with their interaction making its behavior, agreed? You go to bank to open an account. Customer goes to bank to open an account. Account and customer are entities. Open is some function on that entity. So entities has attributes. Entities has not only attributes but also it has attributes, but also logic also, functions also. In databases, what is an entity? In database, if there is an entity, what do you create for an entity in database? You create a table for an entity. What is an attribute in database? Columns. Yes, you have columns, you have, yes, tables. Agreed. So similarly, people say that don't just create functions, create an entity in programming. In entity in a programming, what is an entity in programming? Anyone? Class. Perfect. So you create a class, you have attributes, and this will, if you have a class. And so object oriented, the difference between procedural and object oriented: in procedural you don't create entities, you directly write functions, and in object oriented programming you create classes and you write functions and variables inside classes. So that is the major difference between object oriented programming and procedural programming. Okay, fine. Is everyone good with this? Okay. Object oriented programming is nothing but writing classes. Means you write the entity and then you define the attributes and functions on the entity. Procedural means no entities, just functions. Okay. Yeah. So next thing is scripting versus compilation. Scripting means, see, did everyone write a shell script? Did everyone write a shell script? Okay. Did you compile the shell script? No. How did you run the shell script? How did you run the shell script? You'll do sh and you'll give, you'll just even give the file name and it will execute, right? So you don't have to compile. See, there are programs you don't need to compile. But if you write a Java program or a C++ program, can you directly run it? No, you can't run it. So programs, there are programs which you need to compile first into binary and then run it. There are programs, see, there are two things. I write a C++ program. I need to first use compile. How do you compile? Means, is there any tool to compile? Yes. We compile programs using compiler. Compiler are another software which convert a language into another language, right? So we compile using compiler. So compiler is a program which is compiling my C++ program into binary, and we run the binary. We run the binary. See, for example, let's say this application is there. Is this a compiled program? Is this a compiled program? Yes, this program is compiled. I can't see the code. It is converted into binary and it is packaged into. So when I'm clicking it, I'm running this. I'm running this reader, Adobe Reader. So this is called running, right? So compiling means you are converting one type of code into another type of code. So compiling is different, running is different. When you do scripting languages, while you run they compile. So you don't have to compile them separately. While running the program itself, they compile. So that is the, so tell me some scripting languages. VB script, shell script, JavaScript. So if you see anything with script, JavaScript, these are all. Perl is also scripting only. Even Python is also scripting only. Yeah. Groovy script, very good. Cucumber is a tool. Cucumber is not a language. AWK is a program. AWK is not a language. Shell scripting is a language. AWK is a program. PHP is not scripting. I think it's compiled. I don't know. Ruby, yes, it's scripting and there is versions of it, I believe. I don't know, actually. I didn't work on Ruby. Yeah, so no problem. So coming back, there is scripting versus compilation. Compilation means C, C++, Java, C# and all this. Then there is platform dependent and platform independent. Let's look at that. Okay. All right. Okay. Yes, Sujaya, PHP is a scripting language. Okay. So generally, when you compile, so let's take two languages here. One is C program, one is Java program. There is a C program, there is a Java program. You have a C program and you compile. What do you get? You get binary, means equivalent to binary, that is called OS code, which can be run by the operating system. So you have a C program, you compile, you get OS code and you will run it on the OS. So this is called, so for example, I am on a Mac machine. I have a C program. I compile it. I get OS code for Mac. Code for Mac. Now I will run it on Mac. Will this run on Windows? If I take this code, OS code for this Mac, and if I take this for Windows, will it run on Windows? No, it is machine dependent. So a C program which is compiled on Mac will not run on Windows. A C program which is compiled on Windows will not run on Unix. A C program which is, like, so these are different operating systems, so they won't work. These are called platform dependent. Okay? Because see, when you go and download Adobe Reader, is the download file same for Windows and Mac? When you are going to download Notepad or Firefox, Google Chrome, is it same for Mac and Windows, or they are different links and different things? No, it's not same. It's different. So if the program is same, finally it is giving a different same thing. But what I am trying to mention is, for example, let's say, see, this is for Windows, it's different. For Mac, it's different. For Linux, it's different. You see that? Depending up, see, it is giving me this link because I am on Windows. But if I go for, like, let's say Adobe Reader for Android is different, and let's say line, yeah, Ubuntu. See, for Ubuntu is different. So the programs change depending upon the operating system. See, finally they give same functionality, but the program, the file is different. So when you compile the compiled code, so when you compile a code, the compiled code is different for different machine, different type of machines. So this is called platform dependent. Okay. Now for example, let's say let's say let's come to platform independent. There is a Java program. So let's say you have a Java program. So I will give you an example of a Java program. Let's say okay. I will give you an example for a Java program. Give me one second. This is different. Okay. Yeah. So think about the Flash player. Okay. Think about the Flash player, like which plays your YouTube videos and everything. Okay. So think like it is written in Java. Okay. When you compile, think like when you compile, you get some code. So this is called actually we are trying to learn the platform independent architecture. See, if you want to become a platform independent, means there is a program which can run anywhere. How can a program run on anywhere? So let's say there is a Java program. We compile. When you compile, it won't give you operating system code. So for example, in platform dependent, when you compile, you get the operating system code. For Mac, you got Mac code. For Windows, you got Windows code. For Android, you get Android code. But for when you compile Java program, you don't get operating system code. You get some intermediate code that is called IL, intermediate language. So when you compile a Java program, you get intermediate language that is also called bytecode. So this bytecode is nothing but another language created by Sun Microsystems only. This bytecode is nothing but another language created by Sun Microsystems only. Okay. Microsystems only. Okay. Now this is compiled bytecode, means when you get the bytecode means it is already compiled. You can take this and run anywhere on any machine, but will Mac understand bytecode? No. Will, for example, see, sometimes when you start a program or something, it will tell that Java is not installed on your machine. Please install Java to run this program. Did you get any kind of message anywhere, anytime? Anyone? Did you get any this kind of message anytime? Yes, simple. So what does it mean is like Java created a platform called JRE, that is called Java Runtime Machine, Runtime Engine. To run Java, you need this engine. So you need anyone who wants to run Java programs, they need to have this engine. That might be Android, that might be iOS, that might be Windows, that might be Mac, that might be Linux, that might be anything. Anyone who wants to run Java needs to have JRE. So if there is a JRE, so there is a JRE for Windows. So Windows people will go and download JRE for Windows. There is a JRE for Mac. There is a JRE for, so everyone will go and download JRE once. Okay, everyone will go and download JRE once. But it will be, what is JDE? It's not JDE, it's JRE. Java Runtime Engine. Okay. So coming back, so every machine should have JRE. There are 3 billion devices on 3 billion machines which have JRE. What does that mean? JRE is most common software on a machine. Every machine will have JRE. So do one thing, go to your C program files and C type J. Java should be there. So check it. Go to C program files and type J. Java should be there. So if Java is there, means you have JRE. Simple. Java means I didn't install it because I cleaned up my machine. That is the reason I didn't install it, because I want to do it here. So JRE will be there on every machine. So when there is JRE, you can run Java. So a developer will write Java program and he will compile it. When you compile, what will you get? You will get bytecode. This bytecode will run everywhere JRE is present. So if you see this picture here again, so you have a Java program, you compile, you get bytecode, you can run this bytecode anywhere this JRE is there, and this JRE will convert this bytecode into binary. This JRE is the one who will convert this bytecode into binary. So this will, you compile Java to bytecode and you compile bytecode to machine code. Swati is asking me what is JDK. JDK later, Swati. It's not, we won't look at it right now. Okay. See, in C program, when you compile, it directly gives you binary of that operating system. In Java, it won't directly come to binary. First we come to bytecode. This bytecode will be compiled into binary by using JRE when the program is run. So in platform independent architectures, we have an intermediate language called bytecode. So you have Java, you have bytecode, and you have binary. Agree? So from Java to bytecode it is compiled, but from bytecode to binary it is scripted. Means it is run, it is compiled while running it. Agree? So from so it is combination of both compilation and scripting. It is a combination of both compilation plus scripting. Agree? So that is Java. So to run any Java program or to run any not C++, to run any Java, to run any C# program, so you need that runtime engine. So generally for Java it is called JRE. So that runtime engine, JRE runtime engine. So let's go and download Java now and we will try to see whether we can do a small program. So did everyone understand until now? Okay. Yeah. So there is, we will download JDK, not JRE. Okay. See, as we came to JDK, let me explain it. JDK means Java Development Kit. See, to run any bytecode, to run any bytecode, we need to have JRE. But are we here to just run programs or write programs also? We are writing programs and we need to compile. To compile, we need to have compiler. So see, JRE is used to do what? It will run bytecode, right? If you have bytecode, it will run it. But we need to compile Java to bytecode, agreed? And we need to some other thing. So we need many tools. All these tools are packaged into one set called JDK, that is called Java Development Kit. So anyone who is building Java programs need Java Development Kit, agreed? So if you go here, actually JDK, you can download 7 also, but I would say JDK 6 is most stable. So I'll use JDK 6 download. Got it? And I'll go here. And if you see, this is JDK 6, Java SC6 update 43. And I will say download. And see, I will send you the link. Accept the license. See, JDK is there for many languages. Mine is Windows 32-bit. So if it is 32-bit, use x86. If it is 64-bit, use this one. So I will use this one. But if you want to, I will give you the links for this for everyone. So please download it. So this is 32-bit and this is 64-bit. Okay. So let's download this JDK. Let's run it. I will actually explain this part again tomorrow, so you don't have to worry. I will run this now. Didn't we install it already when we installed Oracle? Yes, you might have installed JDK when you installed Oracle. So if you have JDK, don't do it again. Yes, agreed. But I didn't install, so I will show you. So if you see program files, now you will see Java and you will see JDK. So if you go to your program files and Java, if you see JDK folder, don't install it. If you don't have that, then only install it. So if you go to program files and Java, means sometimes it can be program files x86 and just program files. So check in both of them. Okay. So if you have program files and Java, anything, program files x86 or program files and Java, if you have JDK and JRE, if you have JDK means you have this one. Once you have JDK, there is one thing you need to do, that is called setting up the environment variables. The reason is Microsoft and Sun Microsystems fought some time back and something happened at that time, so we need to set up this. So I will tell that later. So what I mean is, you need to tell Windows that please go and look at this location when I type something in command line. So this is called setting up environment variable. I will do that tomorrow, so wait until then. Then open command line, open command line and type Java C. If you see this, means Java is set up. So right now let's see the platform independent architecture. I will do a small example. So just I will do a small example. Okay. I will create a new text file. See this one. And I will say hello world. Actually open this and file save as, and don't save it as a text file, use all files and say hello world dot java. Okay, see, if you use text files it will automatically come at the end dot text, so I am using dot java. Okay, hello world dot java. So I'll write a small program. See, you don't have to write it, I will show it to you again tomorrow. I will write a small program. See, I wrote a Java program in this folder. So how do I get to that folder? Can anyone tell me? In command line, how do I get to that folder? What is the command for changing a folder? Changing a directory? Okay. Now see, if you have a Java program, what is the first thing you will do when you have a Java program? When you have a Java program, what is the first thing you will do? You will compile. Perfect. So how will I compile? Java C hello world dot java. See, I will explain this again tomorrow, so don't worry about it. If you see, I compiled and I created what? I created bytecode. Remember, I created bytecode. And now I want to run this program. Java hello world. What did it print? Hello world. Right? Agreed? So I compiled the program, then I ran the program. So this is how platform independent. So if I take this dot class file anywhere, I can take it to Mac, Android, iOS, anywhere. It will work as it is supposed to, as long as Java is installed on that machine. So this is called platform independent architecture.